Today, you're gonna learn how to get speed from absolutely no momentum. And then I'd like to cover the reverse, which is how to come to a complete stop without ever getting off the skates, and then get going again. Before trying this, I think it's important you know how to do, or at least have a good understanding of, a couple of things. The first one being standing still. This is quite literally, or at least in my opinion, the most valuable thing you could learn how to do as a free skater, the most underrated skill. It just involves putting your feet like this and being able to go stationary at any point in time. This means you're never getting off the skates, you never have to step off, get back on, push. This is gonna be the foundation to what we're learning today. An easy way to get going with standing still is putting your toes down like normal on the skates, but then when you lift your front foot, shift it 90 degrees, and then lift your other. And then suddenly, you're standing still. I'm probably making this look a lot easier than it's gonna be for a complete beginner, but you don't even need to know how to free skate at all for this to work. And the reason this works is because you have this leg compensating on this axis, and then this one on this axis, so you're always covered regardless of where your balance is falling. Second thing we should cover is how pumping works. Pumping is essentially pointing your toes together and pointing them apart, but that's not gonna get you anywhere unless you also apply the pressure this way and this way. As you can see, I'm not going anywhere just from pumping, but if I start pushing and pulling as I point my toes together and apart, that's what's going to give me momentum. An interesting way to get a feel for how the physics of this works is by taking your skate, lining up the wheels just parallel to where you're standing, and try and pull it towards you. And you might realize it's not really going anywhere. It's hard to get the skate to move towards you. But if you angle this front wheel towards you a little bit and then pull, suddenly that skate moves that way for some reason. Just by angling and pulling directly towards me again, that skate's gonna move forward. And that's essentially what's happening when you are angling both skates. So I'm gonna angle this one towards me, this one away from me, and I'm gonna push in opposite directions. All I did was push that way. Opposite to that, if I point the skates the same way, but instead of pulling this one towards me, I'm gonna push it away from me and pull this one towards me. Now we're going that way. Knowing how this pressure works is going to help for when we actually get going from a standing still position. So hopefully now we understand two things. We understand standing still at 90 degrees, and also we understand pushing and pulling while the skates are angled to get going somewhere. Now I'm kind of cheating because as you can see, I'm at a decline here, but that's going to be besides the advice of this video, I promise. So earlier I was talking about how to stand still, I'm pointing my front foot 90 degrees. The first step for learning this is pulling using that foot. So essentially I'm pulling myself forward because that skate's not going anywhere. Of course, since my goal is to go straight, I can't keep this foot facing this way for very long. So after I pull, I'm gonna point that toe back inward. Stand still, pull, rotate inward. Now where it gets really efficient is where you combine the push-pull between both of your legs. So you could just use that front one to give you a little head start, but the goal here is to pump straight out of that standing still position. So because I'm pulling my front foot towards me, I'm gonna push my back foot away from me this way as I roll forward. You can make this concept a little more clear for yourself if you practice standing still evenly with both legs. So instead of having them perpendicular like this or perpendicular like this, try pointing them both at about 45. So you're creating an exact 90-degree angle with your trucks at a point right in front of you. So because neither of my skates are more rotated than the other, I can exactly apply force in this direction. Toes are already pointed out. So in order to achieve the next position of toes in, this next step is going to be the same regardless of if you're goofy or regular. Your front foot is going to pull back towards you, and then your back foot is going to push away from you that way. So I'm gonna do goofy first, and then I'm gonna do regular. So front foot pulls towards me, back foot pushes away. I'm gonna get a little bit of a head start. this might be a little tricky for me since I'm going uphill and I don't normally start regular this way. So front foot is always gonna pull towards me. I'm gonna wind up. I was fighting a hill there, and I'm more of a beginner when it comes to that direction, starting from zero. But essentially, starting from nothing comes from knowing where to apply the pressure. And since your feet are already pointed in a certain direction, you can apply pressure and pump to the other position, and now I'm toes together. If you're having trouble with this concept, I would say it would make sense, especially if you are pretty early on in learning pumping. That is why I would recommend using this more 90-degree method of having the front foot exactly perpendicular to motion, and then using it to kind of pull you forward as a little cheat code. All right, now let's cover how to transition to a stop. So in order to come to a complete standstill, you need to first slow down. So some prerequisites for this part are learning how to slow down in some way, or literally just anything that reduces your speed. Going against a hill, anything that eventually slows you down, and then you can come to our T-stance again. So method number one is probably my most common way to do this, and that is with the 180. So we've already gone over this in our 180 tutorials, but the basic steps are rotating your front foot 90 degrees, letting your back foot follow through, and then snapping both together at the end. The difference here is when you snap, that front foot is going to rotate an extra quarter turn, which puts you in the T-stance. Snap like normal, I keep rolling, and then this time with this red and orange skate, I'm going to rotate an extra quarter turn. And then suddenly I'm in a T-stance. The reason this works is because a 180 is creating friction, thereby slowing you down. So a lot of times, depending on how fast I'm going, I am able to just do a 180 straight into a T-stop. This has caused me in the past to scare people when I skate right up to them and then without warning, stop in place like on a dime, and they get super freaked out. But at this point, I have confidence in myself that I'm not gonna hit them. To practice something like this, you could place an object somewhere like this handy dandy JMK Ride water bottle and then skate up to it and try not to hit it. Ideally, it would be an item you don't care about so much, but let's try it again. I like to turn this into a T-slide, especially at like higher speeds, and I still want to end up at that standing still T-pose. The second method of coming to a complete standstill is arguably the easier of the two because there's no 180 involved. You just need to be moving and then either do a turn or a carve while keeping your toes pointed outward. At a very basic level, if I don't even know how to carve yet, I'm going to try my best to act like a complete beginner and turn up this hill and keep my toes out. Suddenly, my toes are pointed outward automatically in a T-pose. So all you would need to do is do a front side turn or carve, keeping your toes out, and at pretty much any speed, you can come to a complete stop as long as you carve hard enough, I guess, if you're going fast. So for this one, I'm gonna carve a little bit. I almost turned all the way around there, but pretty sharp carve. And then I'm gonna draw this one out a little bit. Keep your toes out, and now suddenly I'm facing that way. A little bonus exercise is while you're standing still, being able to turn and face any direction by just rotating your skates a little bit. Fun little thing to practice. So together, I guess in reverse order, here's what these two things look like. I'm stopped, and then I'm gonna pump, and I'm already getting a lot of speed, and then stop again. That one turned into something of a 360. Which just goes to show, in order to come to a complete standstill and stay on the skates, you basically just combine whatever method you are slowing down with and end it in a toes out position. And then whenever you want to get going again, do what we covered earlier to start pumping. The skills in this video seem so basic at first, but they help me so much in my day-to-day skating, so I hope that helps you. If you want to pick up a set of JMKs, I'll link that right here, and YouTube thinks you'll like this video next. Thanks so much for watching, and roll with us.